I know you debated Robert Spencer recently on the PPD podcast. Can you talk about who Robert Spencer is and then tell us a little bit about how your debate went down with him?
Sure. So Robert Spencer is one of these chief Islamophobes, and he's had a long history of attacking Muslims, attacking Islam, spreading all kinds of lies and bigoted nonsense about Islam. But he was involved with the government. He was involved with informing the government about Islam, and he had enjoyed this kind of position, and then he kind of fell out of favor eventually. But he has this history of contributing to the war on terror against Muslims, this mentality of countering violent extremism. And I've been challenging him to debate for years. And he would always have some excuse. No, I'm not going to debate. Some excuse not to debate. This opportunity with Patrick Bet-David, he wanted to have like a Christian Muslim debate on his podcast. And originally, Muhammad Hijab from the UK was supposed to come and debate Robert Spencer and some other Christians. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it. So he promoted me to Patrick and said, oh, why don't you have Daniel? So I was there. Also, Jake, you might know Jake Brancatella. He was there as well. And we were us two Muslims against not Patrick, but Robert and this Rashid guy. He's a Moroccan who's very popular in the Arab world as this kind of troll, basically. But he's more popular in Arabic than in English. But for some reason, he found himself sitting next to Robert Spencer. And what's funny is that they had like no rapport, which was strange. Like you're on the same side debating as Christians, but they didn't really seem to like each other. And so we go to Miami for this, and we don't meet Patrick until it's like showtime. And then we come into the studio, and then we just meet him for the first time. He's really nice, a really sociable type of guy. And we sit, and then, the conversation starts. But if it hadn't been in that venue, if it hadn't been Patrick Bet-David and Robert Spencer being the worm that he is, not wanting to miss that exposure, he would have dodged. Still would have dodged me, to prevent any kind of confrontation. And then we saw what happens. Like it was a complete disaster for his image as an expert on Islam and religion. So yeah, he's a charlatan, but it was really satisfying seeing him squirm.
And what is his connection to, if not the ADL, but other Zionist groups, like through this funding network? You're familiar, of course, with the Fear Inc. report, the Center for American Progress. They did this report on the Islamophobia network and all the funding and how it spreads from different groups to think tanks to activists to people like him. So can you talk a little bit about his connection to the entire like Zionist Islamophobic network?
So he's connected, I believe, it's been a while since I reviewed that report, but the David Horowitz Foundation, I believe, is what it's called. David Horowitz is the main person, hardcore Zionist. And they fund people like Spencer, also Pam Geller, Daniel Pipes and the Middle East Forum. And they've all done like articles and hit pieces on me, basically. But they've been branded, especially post-Trump, as Islamophobes, and they're not seen as respectable figures in the way that they were in the Bush era and maybe early in the Obama era. Basically, towards the end of the Obama second term and early Trump days, this idea of Muslims as a protected minority, that was something new. So the younger generation of Muslims might not realize, but this type of animosity towards Islam was really common, and like depicting Muslims as terrorists in like respectable media, mainstream media, that was extremely common. And it was only in a sense because Trump came on the scene, and Trump is spewing like this kind of anti-Islamophobic, anti-Muslim nonsense. He's talking about a Muslim ban. And because the mainstream establishment hates Trump so much, they were willing to say, okay, no, Muslims are, our friends, and Muslims are important, special people. And if Trump is attacking them, that shows how bigoted and evil Trump is. So they're using Muslims kind of as a weapon against Trump. So we benefited from that. And this kind of outright Islamophobia obviously has always been a part of the mainstream media, but it became more taboo. And figures like Robert Spencer and Pam Geller, the kind of political position they had as like respectable members of that class, they're kind of ostracized because they're just too far. And groups like the ADL, on the other hand, they're able to shift from being more like Robert Spencer to no, we're about protecting, the Muslims too from Islamophobia and LGBT, and like they evolved in order to stay within the political establishment. So now they're the ones who, when they come out with a hit piece, more people will pay attention, as opposed to the kinds of hit pieces that come from Daniel Pipes or Robert Spencer.
Trust nothing. No lies.